Hello, hello?
Hello?
Hello? Is anyone out there?
It's a mom's night out.
This week, we have a very special guest, Nicki Riesberg, who is a social media reform advocate and the host of Scrolling to Death podcast. Nicki is a former social media executive who ran a successful social media marketing business for 15 years. In 2023, she flipped the switch to focus on keeping kids safe online. She started her podcast for all the parents who are worried about social media. After digging into research that wasn't easy to find, the answer was glaringly obvious. Social media is bad for kids. Today, Nicki curates conversations that expose online harms, educates parents on safe screen use, and provides a roadmap for social media safety. Nicki is a mom of 3 who lives in sunny Southern California. In her spare time, she enjoys exercise, cooking, and travel. She knows firsthand how overwhelming it can be to navigate social media and the online world. Today, our children are more hopeless, anxious, depressed, and suicidal than they have ever been in recorded history. This episode just scratches the surface on the dangers of social media. Join us as we ask Nicki some of the most pressing questions we have as parents in regards to screens and social media when it comes to our children. There is so much information in our episode, and if you like what you hear, we encourage you to check out her podcast, Scrolling to Death. These conversations are hard to hear and can be hard to have, but they are so very important. We hope you enjoy. Welcome, Nicki. We are so excited to have you on a Mom's Night Out podcast. And I think for all our listeners, we wanted to hop right in and set the stage for us. Tell us why you started a podcast educating parents of the dangers of social media.
Sure. Thanks for the question. So
We'll get right in there.
Thanks, Katie. So I was a social media manager for a really long, 10 years. I had my own company. And I started to feel really weird about it because I stopped using social media personally. To be honest, I wasn't feeling good about my use. I stopped posting my kids online. And I started to do more research on social media use, especially for kids, because my kids were getting a little bit older. And I was like, how am I going to approach this? And I just started reading all these stories of how kids were literally dying from something that happened on social media. Sorry to jump right into that. But it's like, first of all, there are really horrific things, which we'll talk about, that kids can get access to on social media. But second of all, just the rates of anxiety and depression and suicidal ideation because of their use of their phones really bowled me over. And so I thought I need to close down this business as soon as possible and start educating parents on this. And so, that was kind of the journey. And I got to connect with a couple of parent survivors. I call them like moms and dads who've lost a child right away. And now we're like great friends. And I'm on the board of one of their organizations. And it's just like, they're doing so much great work and they retell their stories, literally the worst days of their lives over and over, just to save other kids. And I feel like once you hear those stories, you can't go back from that. And so it's just been a journey.
Really heartbreaking.
Oh my gosh, you can feel your
I know. Even when we had the
through.
pre-call, I remember hearing some of these stories, and it's staggering. And I guess that gets us into, we don't have to go through a bunch of stats, but I think just to set the stage, because I think a lot of people are in denial about how big of a problem social media and just use of screens is with our kids.
Yeah.
And us.
Yeah. I don't want to judge any adults for how much time they spend on their phones.
No, but that was why we reached out to you originally, because we were flabbergasted, I think, at how much time we were all spending on social media, just for the podcast to promote it. And I was like Googling and researching, and we found you. And so, I think, it's scary for adults. So talk about some of the statistics that you're seeing that would be meaningful to parents.
Yeah. I mean, we don't need stats to understand how much kids are using social media, but it's just crazy that about half of kids 8 to 12 are even on social media, which is they're not supposed to be, which is a big problem.
8 to 12.
That's crazy. And so teenage girls spend an average of 20 hours a week on social media, which is like a part-time job. Like they treat it like a part-time job, and they're using it. And luckily now a lot of schools are banning phones at school. I don't know if they're doing that at your guys' schools, but
Yes.
but they're accessing it at school. A lot of kids get it in their bedroom at night, and they're up till all hours of the night. And what we're seeing over time is that it's not safe for them, and it's leading to a lot of issues. Kids are getting cyberbullied. Like half of the kids witness cyberbullying every week, and 1 in 5 kids are cyberbullied every week. 1 in 8 kids receive unwanted sexual advances on Instagram, like in the past week.
Stop.
Kids are seeing nudity right away. They're seeing drug content right away. And so there's a lot of those scary things, but then there's also generally stats around if kids spend 3 or more hours a day on social media, they face double the risk of depression and anxiety. And to me, that's very clear. Like that's a limit. Let's not, as a parent, don't let your kids go on it 3 hours a day, because then you're doubling their risk of depression. Like we can make that simple choice. There's the scarier stuff, like 30% of teenage girls say they have seriously considered suicide, and 9% of teens have attempted suicide in the past year. That's like almost 1 in 10. Yeah.
That's insane.
And how do they even know about that, you know? And how do they know how to try it? Because there's videos on TikTok saying how to kill yourself at home without feeling any pain. Like there's
Disgusting.
It's so there's a lot of horrible stats and scary things, and all of it points to like delay social media use and decrease the time you spend on it.
Yeah. I know when we first spoke to you, there was a big bill that has passed. I mean, obviously there's a bunch of legislation and, people trying to push for reform at a government level. But then you also have this whole camp of people who say, keep the government out of it. It should really be up to the parents and the kids to monitor the social media use. And I think just hearing your perspective on that.
Well, we've kept government out of regulating social media and tech companies since the late 90s, and it's not going very well. And so we need to do some regulation. We don't need to overdo it. We don't need to censor people or anything like that, but we need regulation that will force the platforms to create safer, to be safer by design. So it's not about regulating content or anything like that. It's about, are the platforms rolling out addictive features? Are they pushing dangerous suicide content and algorithms? Like they're not going to be allowed to do that anymore. So the Kids Online Safety Act is the big bill that passed the Senate 91-3 at the end of July. And so basically it needs to pass the Senate and pass in the House of Representatives. And then they're two different versions, and then they come together. They meet to create a version that they're happy with that's like made of both. Then it goes back down to get passed by the Senate and the House. And then it goes up to the president to sign. So everybody's on recess until like a week from now. And so basically we need the members of the House, already passed in the Senate, the first version. We need people to contact their representatives in the House to ask them to pass the bill. You could say co-sponsor COSA or pass COSA, whatever. Or you can say protect our kids online, whatever you want to say. But this bill, like literally every parent I've talked to that has lost a child or had a child harmed in any way supports COSA. That's all I need to hear. But I've also interviewed several senators and legislators and experts and researchers and doctors, and everybody supports it. The people who don't are kind of falling for the narrative that's being pushed by big tech, that it's a censorship bill when it's not.
Okay. So we could link for our listeners and they can reach out and try to make some sort
I would
of
link to fairplayforkids.org. And they have right off of their homepage, there's a like support COSA link, and it has a form you can put in your information. It's like a templated letter or like email you can send to your local representative.
Amazing. We're going to link that for all you guys.
Yeah.
Make it easy.
So I think we've all heard the reasons and justifications parents have for why they are allowing their children to have screens and devices at a young age. Is there a reason in your perspective why a child should have screen time or be on a device?
I'm going to say no. I'm super conservative about it. I think the big thing for me is no individual device time as a young child. There's a ton of studies that are showing how detrimental it is for 2 and under to spend time with devices. And it delays their development, their language, their emotional regulation, all of these things that are really, really bad and affect them all the way into teenage years and adulthood. So 2 and under, it's like, do everything you can to not. I know it's probably on in the background and your kid is maybe looking at it, whatever. Like there's things about that is not great either based on a doctor I spoke to. But listen, we can't control all of it. Don't hand them a device. Like don't hand them your phone if you can get away with it for 2 and under. And above that, I know it gets really hard, especially like at restaurants and traveling, but just don't default to it. Like wait until the last possible moment. And then know too that usually in kindergarten, they start getting access to devices in most kindergartens. And so you have to balance out that time that they're already getting at school. It's like it adds up and it's not good for them.
That was literally our next question. So, you know, we all have second graders and kindergartners and early preschool. And I think kindergartners, as you mentioned, and second graders, they're coming home and they're like, oh, I did this on the iPad at school. I'm like, wait, what? Because I think all 3 of us were lucky in our friendship that we're on the side that you're on. We're like, no devices. You do not need that.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes like on an airplane.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about iPads at school?
So like the early 2010s, and I'm doing research on this for an episode, but in the early 2010s, like the Apple and Google just dumped a bunch of devices on our schools and they wanted the money from the government contracts to sell the products to the schools. In addition, giving little kids their product creates lifelong customers. And so they're trying to addict kids to Apple or Google from the time they're 5 years old. So that is why there was no research to suggest that kids learn better from devices or that it's good for them at all. And now 10, 15, 20 years later, 10, 14 years later, we are at a point where our global test scores have plummeted. Like kids are doing worse than ever educationally and socially and emotionally. And then, through COVID, everyone, if they weren't already, got one-to-one devices and starts taking them home. So I think it's time for schools to start taking a really close look at if it's good for our kids and if the pros outweigh the cons and not keep pushing more technology, especially as AI is coming and kind of unregulated and can be unsafe. So yeah, I don't love it. Personally, my 3-year-old, she'll go into TK next fall. And I already told the principal that she will not be using a device in TK. And I got like a blank stare, that's not really possible.
Okay. So I love what you just said. Is that an option? Like, can you as a parent say to the school, nope, I don't want my child participating in this?
So I created an email I sent it to my principal and a couple board members at our district that basically laid out all the research as to why kids don't learn from their devices. And also the devices aren't locked down. Like there's all these distractions and there's YouTube and all these crazy Safari, internet and all these crazy things on them. So I sent out a long email. I was able to have a conversation with my principal and she said, how much time would you feel comfortable with per day? And I said like 20 minutes. And she's like, okay, like that is doable. So, whether to say, like, is that to say the teachers are actually sticking to it? I hope so, but I really don't have a way of knowing. But I made that email available in a template in the link in my Instagram bio if anyone wants to like borrow it and use it for their principal.
We are going to send all the parents in our community to that because I didn't even think that was an option.
I didn't even smart.
Especially if you have multiple parents that are like, we're all a little concerned about how much time they're spending. Can we please stick to under 30 minutes or something?
Yeah, but it's funny because I actually have no idea how much time they actually are spending on devices in school. Well, open house is tomorrow night.
I'm going to ask that question.
It's going to be a question. It's just something that's never crossed my mind.
I agree. And by the way, I feel like 20 minutes or 30 minutes is a lot of time.
It is. I know. And I think I started with asking my kids, like, how many times do you pick it up? Because they don't know time, like how much time. So how many times do you pick it up? My son was like 3 or 4 and my third grader was like, I couldn't even count, like 20, 30, like so many.
Wow. That's such a great question.
Why are we using it for every single subject?
Yeah.
And so end state right now is I'm trying to work with my school and my district to like take another look at the tech. Bark Technologies has a free monitoring tool for schools. So any school can use Bark and put it on a monitoring on all of the school devices. And that way we get alerts if like they see pornography on the device or they search for something weird, we get an alert. And my school's been really hesitant. Like they just don't want suggestions from me. And so we're looking at alternative schools.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Honestly, like they don't know who they're messing with. They're probably like, oh no.
No, me and the tech guy. Me and
They're
the
like,
tech
no,
guy at the
they know.
district. We're like in a fight, me and the tech guy at the district. Like he does not like me.
I mean, he should
Well, you
be
have to
worried.
be your own advocate for what you know is right for your children.
Yeah.
It kind of brings me to another. It seems like a very divided subject because there are some parents, like us and you, who are very on top of this and don't want their kids to have devices, or at least learn how to use them smartly and limit their time. But then you have these parents who really want their kids to have a means of communication when they're in school. So certain districts that are banning iPhones or Apple Watches or just cell phones in general. I think that's just an important question of what do you say to the parents who are like, but my kid needs it in middle school to communicate with me? Like, how do you get around that?
Yeah. So before phones, how did anyone communicate with their child? Like,
You
there's
picked up
always
the phone
a
and you
way.
called your mom's office.
Literally,
Yeah,
you went to the
I mean-
office.
Yeah. And I call the school sometimes to have them grab my daughter to tell her something. So she comes to the office and she went back to her classroom and said her teacher was like, is everything okay? Like, it was really odd that, and I just wanted to tell her I was picking her up at a different spot. So it was like not a big deal, but people aren't doing that because they have this other option. The distraction of the phone in school is so huge. Like kids are getting an average, I think, of 400 something notifications. No, 200 something notifications a day, but some kids are getting up to 4,000 push notifications a day. And so you just want to get a hold of them to tell them, or ask them what they want for dinner, how did their tests go. But then they're popping around like anyone would to YouTube and their social media and whatever. And so let alone they can't pay attention in class. There's like a distraction tax kind of thing where like if they look at their phone and put it down, it takes like 20 minutes for them to re-engage with what they were looking at or doing. And there's also a secondhand smoke thing. So if one kid has a phone and the other one's looking at it, it's so distracting for that kid too. So there's a lot of reasons why phones cannot be accessible at school. But for parents that really want to get hold of their child at school, I would say, what do they really need to know urgently? And you can always do that through the school. But also, I know that a lot of parents are concerned about school shootings, and there was one today, which is crazy. So I've talked to so many, I would say at least a handful of law enforcement and school administrators, and kids with a phone in that kind of security, high stress situation. It puts them in more danger because they are distracted from what they need to be doing. You don't need 1,000 people calling the 911 or their parents and distracting everybody. If, God forbid, you're in a classroom and locked down and on the floor and it's dark and then a shooter comes in, like, where are they going to shoot at? The ones that are holding a lit up phone or dinging. Like, it puts them in more danger.
Yeah.
And
Such a good point.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a big prompt because when I came over, I was like, I'm seeing people say, well, there could have been a difference of life or death if people had access to phones in the classroom. And I really do not, I do not believe that for 1 second.
Yeah.
Part of it almost to me, and this is just my personal opinion, feels like it's like the cord, right? Like the helicopter parent. It's like we can't be disconnected from our kids, and we feel like this device gives us a constant connection. But it's like, to your point, we didn't grow up that way. We turned out just fine and great. And so let's disconnect a little.
Yeah. Like, and I always think about how is that going to affect them long term? So if you have a 5-year-old that has a watch on them and they are never alone and they're never independent and they never have a chance to develop those skills, and they know their parent, because these watches have functionality where the parent can just listen in at any point in time. And it's like,
I didn't even know
I didn't know that either.
I didn't know that.
yeah. So if your kid's friend is over and has a watch on, the parent can be listening Just not that anything's going on, but it's like
wild.
such a breach of privacy for me. I don't appreciate that function.
Wait, what?
I had
Yeah.
no idea that.
I didn't know
Not
that
all
was
of
a
them,
thing.
but I think
Wow.
Gab,
Wow.
maybe Gizmo.
There's so much. I'm so like,
like
do not know anything
spyware.
about this topic.
Yeah.
And there's so, yeah. Wow.
Well, that's
So-
interesting that you brought that up because I feel like so many parents with younger or like later elementary school age or middle school parents are like, you're right. We're not going to do a phone, but we're going to give them one of those watches, like
Mhm.
the Gizmo, I think is what they're called.
Yeah.
And they can send texts to let me know where they are. We can track them, but it's just like between me and them. But it sounds
Yeah.
like that's not the case at all.
Yeah. Well, that other functionality is weird. I don't like it. I don't think it should be
No.
allowed.
No.
But
Wrong.
yeah, and I don't see anything wrong with like if you want to be able to communicate with your kid, especially as they get a little bit older and you want to put off giving them a phone. I think it's a great option.
Yeah.
There's it's a lot of the schools with the phone bans are including watches in that, so they have to take it off anyways because teachers they know that they do a lot of the things that the phone do. So it doesn't really solve the problem of getting hold of them during the school day at schools that are actually regulating that. But if you want to send, like I have not, we have a playground 8 houses down. I've not sent my 8-year-old over there by herself. And I was thinking about it, but then I'm like, oh God, that's so crazy. Like, I don't know if I could do it.
Right.
But I'm like, I need to be able to do that. And she'll be fine. And she knows, and I would reiterate, there will be adults over there. If you need help, you talk to an adult. But also you know how to get home. You need to make sure you cross the street safely. Like, so it's uncomfortable. But just because we have the opportunity and the technology to be tracking them all the time doesn't mean we should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we talk about as adults, like on Moms MNO Podcast, we're like, does anyone track their husband's location? And we always find that so strange. Tracking another adult's location
Wild.
24/7 feels like
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
much. So similarly with kids, it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I get it. There are little people, we're wearing our hearts on our sleeves, but like, we really
You know
need
what
to
I
like
think?
have their location.
Yeah, and I haven't thought about this before, but what I think it's doing, because these social media apps have geolocators now. So Snapchat has a Snap Map. So all the
Yes.
friends know where each other are. And then Instagram is rolling out a map too. And so
I saw that.
Yeah. And obviously, just find my phone on iPhones. Kids want to know all the time where all their friends are and track them. And it's just such a weird thing that they're doing. Like teenagers are doing this, but it's really bad for FOMO. Like if you literally on a map can see where all your friends are and you're not invited to that.
Yeah.
Like how is that helpful? Also, it puts them in harm's way because a lot of times it's on Snap Map, they're sharing it publicly. And then like there's predators that are literally
Right.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah,
where
that's a whole different topic. It's
Right.
Yeah. But by us tracking them all the time, does that teach them that it's like normal to be
track.
tracked?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Not normal. Not
Yeah.
normal.
Yeah.
Okay, so on that same note, give us some pointers on how to talk to your children, right? So for our listener, we all have kids, some young, some older. How do you explain to a kid whose friends have
Mhm.
phones and social media apps when you're in the camp that we're not going to have that and we're not doing it? Like, what are some good
Mhm.
conversation starters or like things that you
Yeah.
can say to your child that would get through to them?
Yeah. A lot of parents are telling me that they're letting their teenagers listen to some of my episodes about another teenager who died or was harmed by something that happened on social media.
Yeah.
It depends on the age range and what you feel you're comfortable with. I think that for parents, parents need to understand that there's no data to suggest that delaying your kids' use of social media is detrimental to them at all. Yeah, they
Mic
feel
drop.
left out. They feel left out, but the harm of it is worse. And kids who are not using social media up until 18 do better or as well as kids who are on social media from when they're younger. So as far as like parents understanding that piece of it, but there's still parents that know exactly how bad it is. There's parents who've lost kids that still let their other kid like use it. So I get that, like that left out feeling is really hard. It just takes constant conversations and working together. But in the end, like we're making that decision to keep them safe and do protect them. And that doesn't mean but even if they don't have social media, that doesn't mean they're not going to get access to it on another device or see it from their friend. So we still have to have the conversations about what they could see on there so that they know how to handle that when they see it, whether it's on their social media app or not.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point too of like, you might have in your house these rules, but if they're going to a friend's house, it's truly out of your control. I mean, they're going to probably see access and have access at a friend's house.
Yeah. And
That's
so far
something
I'm
to ask.
comfortable. I'm comfortable telling the other parent that we don't do devices. And like, I can't control if they want to watch a movie, but I feel pretty strong in that I don't want them on a phone or an iPad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
like alone in a room, like
With their friend. Like, I don't think that that's necessary. There's so many other things to do. And my 8, almost
interact with each
9-year-old.
other.
Yeah. Like,
Right. Right.
be bored, be creative. Like, there's so many things for them to figure out to do. And my 8-year-old will, as far as I know and believe, will suggest to do something else if the other kid is like, let's go on my iPad. And she'll be like, she'll just say, like, I'm not allowed to, and like, let's do something else.
That's amazing. I think
So-
that's a testament to the conversations that you're having. And I also think we were talking before we hopped on this episode, like if we all band together, like we're a friend group of moms, like if you band together with other moms and you all have that stance, your kid might not feel as left out, right? Like, okay, like my daughter might see someone else on social media, but she's like, well, my best friend that I grew up with isn't on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it feels like
I hope there's like this tide switch where now it becomes like the cool thing not to be on social media.
Yeah, I think
like, I
it's
just
getting
hope.
there.
like smoking. Smoking was so cool
Yeah, I
for so
know.
long, and now everyone's like, ew,
Ew.
that's disgusting.
They used to have smoking courts in high schools, like where kids could go in high school and
Yeah.
like smoke over there. And like
Wow.
I'm hoping
that's
this
kind of what,
changes.
I mean, people have compared that to what teachers do when they're like, okay, take a 5-minute break and use your phone. It's like, that is so bad, just as bad as getting a hit of nicotine is the addictiveness of the social media apps. But when it comes to the like collaborative effort on this and like coming together, from what I'm hearing and learning, the kids only want it because their friends are on it. So if their friends aren't on it, they don't care about it. And I'm started interviewing teenagers now, and they're like, I thought I was being left out of stuff. And then I went on there and I really wasn't anyway. And I think it's dumb. So it's like, they
Right.
think that it's different than it is too.
Wow.
Are there any, I guess this is a 2-part question. Are there any safe social media apps?
Mhm.
And then on the flip side, like what are the worst ones? Because I'm sure there are apps out there that we've never even heard of.
Yeah. And I'm probably not going to tell you ones you haven't heard of, to be honest. But for safe ones, it's hard because there's no regulation. So I can't promise that like they don't have to keep your kids safe. None of them at all without COSA passing. So like Be Real, I did an episode on that platform, and that is a little bit better. It's like,
Never heard of that.
No, I'm like,
yeah,
I've never heard of it.
it was popular on college campuses. It's not a huge one, but look up Be Real, or you can share. I could share my episode with you. But there's a small one called MeWe, which is MEWE. So there's a
I've never
group.
heard.
Yeah, it's small, but it's basically like giving you back control over your data. So you're not giving up all your data in order to like use a platform. Like you're not selling your soul. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like an interesting one that hasn't, I think it has 1 million users, which is just not very many in the grand scheme. But for the worst ones, I mean, TikTok is like horrible, like horrible. The addictiveness, the psychological manipulation, the horrific content, live suicides, live murders, just everything, eating disorders,
Yeah.
eating
just
disorder
talked
content.
about
Just
that
had it
on a last
today.
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Skinny TikTok.
I had no
Yeah.
idea what it was. I literally thought it was like a slimmed down version of the app.
Oh,
That shows
yeah.
how
Yeah, we're
much
like,
I
nope,
know.
it's girls talking about how to have eating disorders.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, like
You get
500
served
calorie diet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and you click on it once, and then that's all you get served. Like that algorithm is very scary.
Bingo. That's what's scary.
And yes, and there's a lot too that I've learned about the fact that it's owned by a Chinese company, which is concerning because companies that are owned by Chinese companies that are owned by companies that are owned by a Chinese company are under the control of the Chinese Communist Party. Basically, the Chinese Communist Party has a golden share in all Chinese companies.
Yes.
So they can tell a company to do whatever they want, give me information on whoever you want. So first of all, a law passed saying that, you might have heard like TikTok ban, but it's not really that. It's just that TikTok needs to be sold to a company, not in like it doesn't have to be an American company actually, but it can't be a company we're like in war with or something like contention around, but or we're going to remove it from our app stores. And then TikTok sued us back saying that violates First Amendment rights, which does not make sense. And then now they're going through lawsuits. So we're finding out more information, and there's more studies coming out that like people who spend more time on TikTok have pro-China favor. Like they actually believe what China wants them to believe about issues that are sensitive to them. It's just like there's that.
That's crazy.
They're actively psychologically manipulating people to believe certain things. And when I think about the parental level of it, like they're trying to separate kids from their parents and from their like their teachers and things like that. Like they're trying to say, trust us, not like outwardly, but psychologically manipulating them to say, trust TikTok, don't trust your parents, don't trust your government, don't trust anybody else. And so it's really having an effect on kids. And I think over time, you're going to see a lot of issues there if you let your kid on TikTok and don't monitor it. I mean, it's hard to monitor any of these platforms. So Instagram Meta has like basically copied the algorithm or taken note and like given us a similar algorithm. So it's also going to be psychologically manipulating kids. The feeds on Instagram for an adult is going to look very different from a child. So just because you think you see as an adult things you want to see doesn't mean your kid is. Your kid's getting served. It's about 50% of the content that they see is chosen for them by the platform. It's not something they follow or they showed interest in. So who gets to decide what they should see? Instagram? Like 50% of the time they spend on there, they're seeing things that are decided by this for-profit company. Like I'm not comfortable with that.
And that's insane.
Yeah, because I'd be like, oh, for right now, my Instagram is basically like home goods finds and like random like
Podcasts.
cooking videos. So like what I see, I'm like, oh, it can't be that offensive, but I'm sure my feed is very different from what would be served to like a 18-year-old boy.
Yeah. Especially boys. A lot of sexuality, but the vulnerable time they're in with their brain development, they are really susceptible to stuff that makes them feel like stressed and bad and like scared, actually like keeps them on longer than stuff that makes them feel happy. And so they know that, and they're serving them on purpose stuff that's like agitating to them. And so, and also there's just like today I reported on Meta is promoting, so making money off of Nudify apps that are in the App Store. So have you heard of the Nudify apps that there's apps available that use AI to basically, you can upload a picture of anybody and it in one click takes off all their clothes and makes them look realistically naked. So people are using this against schoolmates or teachers.
Oh my God.
And then sending it around and it looks like a realistic nude image. And so it's porn. I mean, it looks like child sexual abuse material or pornography. And you can't tell if it's real or not. And
oh my God.
And Meta was, I mean, they shouldn't be, they're not supposed to be, but they were literally promoting ads for Nudify apps. So there's some legislation called the Take It Down Act. Senator Ted Cruz is sponsoring that one. And I think that's an important one too, because it makes sharing that kind of material like a felony, I believe. I have to look into it a little more, but yeah. So Instagram, not great. Telegram, really, really bad. Anything that's encrypted end to end, your kids don't need to be on it because no one is tracking. No one can ever get access to the communications that are in WhatsApp, Telegram, anything that's end to end encrypted. I can't think of any others at this time, but
did you
Telegram,
Facebook Messenger too?
Yeah, is Facebook Messenger now, or is it through don't they own WhatsApp?
I think they own WhatsApp.
Yeah.
WhatsApp. Okay.
Yeah.
But you can send a letter. You can drop a postcard.
Social media.
You can drop a postcard in the mail.
Yeah, stay off.
I mean, just regular text messaging.
Yeah.
I just feel like what happened to that? But
Flip phone.
Telegram CEO just got arrested in France for basically being complicit in allowing for trading of child sexual abuse material and drugs and guns and like all the and terrorist activity, like all the what happens on apps where no one can track it is nefarious and illegal conversations. Which for adults, like okay, that's where you go to have a private conversation, but we don't need to have children on apps where that is the option.
No.
And it's
So-
terrible. People need to remember, like, this is all leading back to money and dollars.
I
And
know.
that's what this is all about, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
1000%.
Right?
I'll share with you the most shocking thing that I've heard for the last couple months is I interviewed David Erb, who used to work at Facebook. He's like a whistleblower now. So he was at Facebook and they brought him on because they were finding a lot of grooming going on, like hundreds of thousands of kids getting groomed. And so on their platform. And so he went in and he found that actually it was more like millions of kids, tens of millions of kids getting actively groomed through Facebook Messenger. And so he elevated it and was like, you guys, we have to do something about this right away. And what it actually was happening is most of the relationships between kids and predators was being suggested through the people you may know feature on Facebook. So it was actually Facebook that was recommending children to predators, like a picture of a kid to a predator being like, you may know this person. And they just happen to live near each other or something, which is worse because then they can physically harm them. And so he brought it to the executives. They basically said, like, you're in the, community safety seat at this table, but there's a lot of seats at this table. And they took it up to Mark Zuckerberg. And not only did they do nothing at all about it, they then announced they were going to add end-to-end encryption, basically so they couldn't track the conversations and they couldn't be held liable for the conversations, hiding them. So tens of millions of kids getting groomed, Mark Zuckerberg saying, okay, we're just going to let that happen and then we're going to hide it so that we're not liable for it.
Mark Zuckerberg's canceled. And now the fact that I don't have Facebook anymore, I'm so happy about it. Holy shit.
So Meta worst, like the worst. Discord's bad.
I don't even know half of these things, but wow.
Yeah.
I think
Stay
Paul,
off.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes
Stay
It's
off.
hard, guy. Yeah, like
I know,
YouTube's
we
not
have-
great either.
I
Like,
know.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
so bad.
Awful
talked
too.
about this with you. I was like telling you how I was frustrated because my daughter, I'll come down in the morning. She gets up at the crack of dawn, 5 a.m. She turns on the TV. And even if I delete the YouTube app, my smart TV updates and adds it back on.
Yeah.
So you had some really great advice about that, which was put a
Oh.
code on your TV.
Yeah. So my kids can't turn the TV on without us putting a code in. I
And
guess
doing that
they can turn
tomorrow.
it on, but they can't play anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
we definitely, I guess we have YouTube on there, but they just can't like play
can't
anything
get it.
without us putting the code in.
Yeah.
And we have one TV in we just have one TV and it's actually on a projector so I can like roll it up and be
Oh
like,
my
that's not
gosh.
here right now.
That's amazing. I'm putting a code on my TV.
No, it's
literally.
good.
Yeah, just they don't need to. I bet you she'll wake up and like draw. Like she's not
That's-
going to be that
I-
upset
like
about
they have
it.
so much other stuff they can do.
I have to share a story that actually happened in the last few weeks with YouTube.
Yeah.
My mom was watching my daughter and it was very innocent. They were doing like a drawing class on YouTube and my
Yes.
mom walked away to take care of my younger daughter.
Mhm.
And an ad was served about a mother who was in the car with her kids drowning. And it was for that key that breaks the window
Oh
of
my
a car
God.
that's like submerged with water.
The
and
thing is, the ads
your
don't match
daughter
up with the
thought
appropriate. Like that ad should not be served next to
No.
a kid's drawing video.
It
But they don't
so- yeah.
censor for that.
Now she's probably worried about that
She's
happening.
she's very worried. We
Yeah.
keep having nighttime
Oh.
conversations. And that's, we can handle this, but it
Mhm.
was a big wake up call.
Jesus.
Yeah.
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 Imagine if that's happening,
Yeah.
what else could be happening? And this, I
Yeah.
think, is the message that you're preaching to
Mhm.
parents everywhere and the stories that you're sharing. It can
Yeah.
be catastrophic.
If you use YouTube, just maybe upgrade so that you don't get ads. Like maybe that could be helpful. But you still don't know it's like regular old people creating the videos. It's not like Netflix where it's rated and by producers and it's official.
There's a lot of weird stuff on YouTube.
There's
Right?
weird
That's
stuff. Yeah.
Right?
Very weird stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe we go to like some key takeaways.
Yeah, I think so.
I know we always like having this podcast. We're learning a lot. We love our listeners to have key takeaways. So I think to start for our listeners with younger kids, so toddlers. So we all have toddlers here. You have a toddler here, 3-year-old. What advice do you have for parents on how they can set their kids up for success in the future in regards to devices and social media?
So delay, but tell them why you're delaying. So talk to them about the research. Tell them about stories you've learned that are age appropriate.
Yeah.
So delaying is huge, but you have to do it with conversations. You can't just like be like, I said no because I said so. You know, that's not.
That's actually
helpful.
such a smart tip.
I know.
I think so often
So
we
simple.
say no, but we don't actually say why. And I think it's so important to have that
I
conversation.
tell my
Yeah.
kids too much iPad will make your brain mushy, so we don't have them. That's what I say.
And there's something about telling them it affects their brain. I don't know what, like everyone I talk to that presents to kids, they can understand that it's bad for their brain. Like there's something about that they get.
I love that.
So yeah, there's that. And then if they do have devices, make sure you have monitoring on it. So I like Bark Technologies. There's others as well, but you need to be getting alerts if something happens, because kids don't often tell their parents when they see something crazy, because then you're going to take their phone away probably, or like get mad, and it's hard to control those reactions. So just have the monitoring and let them know that they're monitoring it, or you're monitoring it. And that also a big thing for me is don't give them a device like it belongs to them. Like be like, this is my device. I'm letting you use it. We're monitoring it to keep you safe. And if you want to go extra step, you can create like a little tech contract. There's some templates out there that's like, this is what I expect from you. Like, we're just going to have this much time on it. I don't expect you to click on these things or go to this or whatever you want to put in there. But there's templates. But, and then if they don't follow along with the contract, like they lose time. So it's like a continual conversation, and letting and involving them, I think, is a big thing. Involving them in the why and letting them know what you learn as you learn it.
Yeah, and I feel like that's probably pretty applicable for some of like the teenagers too. I feel like all of that is probably the same conversation we'd have with the teenagers. Anything else?
I think if you have if your kid is ready, if you think they're ready for social media, then you need to talk to them about predators and about drugs and about nude AI apps and about choking challenges and about fentanyl. Like, you need to talk to them about all those things, because it needs to come from you and not the social media. Like, they need, like, there's no longer that like, if you let them find out about pornography on their device when they're 7 years old, like, how is that going to affect them? And all the porn these days is like mostly violent and like weird. And that's not safe for them. Like, it has to come from us. And I know it's uncomfortable when it comes to all those topics, but if you're not ready to have those conversations, then don't give them a device, because they're going to get access to all that stuff.
I love that.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple when you say it here, but
It's
it is
not, but
I know it's not, but I think if we could all think of it like it is.
I know.
Yeah.
So true. And then I think, lastly, we want to just, I think, do another plug for, we had talked about what we can do as parents, and you had shared that we can, especially now when the Senate and the House of Representatives are going through these votes, what steps and actions can we take?
Yeah. So on like your local level, I would just say, don't be afraid to speak up to your school. So I have 2 templates on my Instagram bio. One is in support of a phone ban. So if you feel like there's too much phone use at your school, I did a speech at my district and I shared it. I was so nervous when I did it. I was like, I didn't know there was a 3-minute time limit, and I was definitely like a 7 or 8 minute thing. And they're like, so I was trying to cut things as I was saying it. And then at the end, the thing rang and they're like, just keep going. And I was like, okay, fine. So there's that resource. And then also the resource about school issued devices and why, maybe if you think that they're using them too much in class, and some research on why they shouldn't be using them that much. So just don't be afraid to speak. It's scary, believe me. Like, going to the district meetings and talking is not as intimidating.
Yeah.
But it's important. And email your principal. That's probably the first step and the easiest step. Like, emailing your principal with some thoughts around, and asking simple questions like, this is not simple, but I asked my tech guy, like, what data is being tracked or like being collected from my kids when they use the apps that they use at school. That's a more complicated one that probably is like not gonna go very far because it took him like a month to figure it out. Like they're not on top
scary
of
that they don't know that. You know what I
know.
mean?
I didn't even know the schools had tech guys. I know that sounds crazy, but
Yeah, it's a district guy. It's not. They
Okay.
don't have big teams. Like there's not a lot going on.
yeah, it's
there.
like one guy.
Yeah,
one
it's the
guy or
guy.
girl.
And the guy loves AI and he was going to push for more AI tools. And I'm like, this is not where I need to be. Sorry, but let me get back to the question. So definitely speak up at your school, speak up with your friends and local neighbors and things like that about it. Ask them how they're approaching things. But when like really we're going to see big change in the safety on social media, if we parents use our voices to reach out to our representatives and ask them to pass bills that will keep our kids safe. So it is COSA is the number one. Like we have basically 2 or 3 weeks for the House of Representatives to do a markup, which is, I just learned what that means, but like do a markup and then vote on it. And then it needs to do all these other things. So like we have to all call or message our representative in the House. And you can go to house.gov, put in your zip code and find out who your representative is if you don't know who it is. And it's really fast to like send them a message or call. Calling's better. And usually it goes to voicemail. So you don't have to talk to anybody.
Amazing.
Love that. Yeah.
Great.
So easy though, right? It's 5 minutes out of your day that you can really make a big difference. So all of our listeners, we're going to link this so that you can do it because I think it's really important.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. This was amazing. I feel like we're probably going to have you back again and again.
Sure.
I think parents are going to be so pumped. We always like to end the episode with a fun question or a few. So what is your favorite way to unwind as a mom?
That's a great question.
Moms never know the answer.
That's so hard for me because I'm constantly trying to be productive. Like I don't know how to stop doing stuff.
You fit right in here.
Yeah. Like if I'm walking from here downstairs, like I have to carry something with me that needs to go down. Like I have to like multitask like everything that I do.
You're talking to people.
But my husband and I are rewatching Game of Thrones right now. So I would say like a few nights a week we get an episode in. The undead people just burned the wall down like and are coming through. I was like whatever season that is.
Wait,
so it's getting really
scary.
exciting.
I feel like
That's
you're
a
pretty
scary
far in.
season.
I've never
like
watched
last
Game of Thrones,
season
not
8.
even a single episode.
It's so good.
Gosh.
It's so
I mean,
good.
you have to
Candy.
commit. It's a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll take you like a
Spicy
month
good.
or two.
It's a lot.
I try to read something not like work related at the end of the night to like wind down. So what am I? It's like this dragon series where like, what do you guys know
The
what
Court
it
of
is?
Thorns and Roses, that one?
Yeah, or like there's one Empyrean or
Oh, I
something.
haven't
You
heard
guys
that
talk
one.
to Mandy.
I thought I was reading the one
yeah.
you said, and then when I tried to look it up, I was like, wait, I think I'm reading a different.
Different. You guys have to go back and forth and collab.
Yeah, we'll compare notes. No, I love reading at the end of the day too. It just shuts my brain off, and it's nice because it's like, it's a way to unwind and not be on these apps that they're addicting.
I know.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, your house is on fire.
Mhm.
What are you grabbing as you run out the door? And we know it's not your cell phone.
Well, the phone is easy to get a new one. Everything's saved in the cloud. So I don't need, that's replaceable, I guess. So humans are not on the table. Like humans are already out.
Yeah, you're
they're
grabbing
out.
your family
You
and
grab
pets.
them. What else?
Family and pets.
Okay, so yeah,
those are
cat.
included.
Okay, so the cat's
The
taken
cat's
care of. Yeah. We didn't have an animal for a really long time. We just adopted our neighbor's cat and it's been really good. It's like I have too many people to take care of. I can't take care of an animal. I've been asked this once before on a podcast and I like totally flubbed. I have no idea. I think like obviously my purse has like my wallet and my keys in it because I feel like you need, that's
Practical.
not really super replaceable. I think like my childhood photo albums and like I have a box with like old like notes that used to pass in class in high school that they,
Oh my gosh.
I'm trying to have my daughter do that. And
I love that.
yeah. And
They
like,
send texts now.
what else is in there? Just like old photos and things, special things. So maybe that. And then we have a filing cabinet So hopefully I don't get robbed and they take it. But it's like where all of our important documents are.
Social security cards, because how
I won't
wild
say
is it
where
that you
it
have
is.
to have
Yeah.
a card that you
Is
can't
it
even laminate?
fireproof? Is it
It's not even
fireproof?
locked.
No.
It's just sitting here. So
Oh, God.
I think your upgrade is going to be a fireproof locked
I know.
cabinet for those
One that can't move. Yeah.
yeah. But no, I don't. I mean, in the end, I think as long as the people are out, it's okay.
That's what's
Agree.
most important. Okay. And
Yeah.
last question. What is your drink of choice? It can be alcohol or non-alcoholic.
I'll do one of each. Last night we went to dinner and I had a dirty martini
Ooh,
with Grey
speaking
Goose
our
and blue
language.
cheese stuffed olives.
Yes.
So that's a good one. And then I really love an iced latte with oat milk and
Ooh.
a quarter sweet of something. And it depends on the coffee shop. So they'll like, if you ask them what they recommend, they'll tell you these random things. So my coffee shop would have like banana flavor, which sounds like disgusting, but I got like one pump of it and I was like, that's so good. And then now they have pear. And so I have been getting pear sweetener in there.
What?
Oh my god!
Yeah. So
never
like
heard of that.
hazelnut is also a good like default that most places
Agree.
have.
I like that one.
But the guy behind the counter will definitely like tell you what's up. Like
you
let them
tried
recommend
cinnamon?
drinks. Yeah, I do. Like if I don't want to get crazy, I'll do like a little honey and cinnamon.
Yeah,
Mm,
that's my
me too.
go-to.
Yeah. And I realized I was going too big with my drink. Like 16 ounces, like too much milk. So
Yes.
now I do the 12 ounce.
Agree.
Oh, God.
Oh my gosh, Nicki, thank you so much. This was amazing. Truly would love to have you on again. I'm sure. I still have so many questions, but I think
Mhm.
you set the basis for
Yeah.
how we can move forward as parents
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
set our kids up for success with social media, which is keep them off and delay. That's
Yeah.
my takeaway.
Yeah, just like it's a little eye opening if there is so much
is.
bad stuff going on.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
we have to start having those conversations now. I mean, our
Mhm.
oldest are 7 and 8, like they're going to start seeing this stuff.
Mhm.
And, I just kept wanting to push it in the back of my head,
I know,
not
but
thinking we were here, but we're here.
It's time.
Yeah.
And I think
I know.
anyone who wants more information, obviously, after listening to this episode, can find you on your podcast, which is on Spotify,
All the
everywhere,
things.
all the places you get your podcast, similar to us, but it's Scrolling to Death.
Mhm.
And you're doing incredible work, and thank you
So
for
important.
that.
Let's keep going.
Yeah,
Thank
keep
you,
going. Don't
guys.
stop. You have fans here.
Thank you. This was so
Ironically, we found you on
fun.
Instagram.
Yeah, I know. I
Seems
listen.
ironic.
I feel like there's a good community there of parents that like actually are open to learning about this kind of stuff. So I appreciate that and using it for good. If people are going to be on there, I'd rather reach them there than not reach them. So
Totally.
Exactly.
But yeah, I love your guys' vibe. This is so fun. So if we want to do it again and talk about any of the specific things that we mentioned, because we talked about a lot of crazy things, but just the surface. So I think we can definitely go into more detail on any of those things. And
Poll the listeners and see what they want to hear from you.
Yeah.
yeah,
I love that.
that's always great.
Right. All right.
All right. Well, cheers and
Thank
thanks for
you.
coming on.
Thank
and
you.
talk soon.